1, 2, 3, 4. I got thoughts running through my head. I got thoughts, can't you see? I got thoughts, the books I read. I got thoughts, won't you listen to me?
Another thing I wanted to explore in the no circuit was the LGL concept, the corporate run states and cities and all that sort of thing. And I'd seen a lot. We'd seen a lot in Under the Amoral Bridge, but I wanted to explore it while also getting away from Chronosoft and the Los Angeles setting. So I wanted to see how that maybe worked in another state. So, and I'm actually exploring this a little bit more in the novel I'm writing now, which is going to be the 6th novel in the Bridge series. So we go to Colorado, and Colorado is run by a corporation called the Legios Corporation, Legios, Legios. Legios Corporation is a bit more, I guess, frontiersy, Montana, Colorado kind of corporation, where I was actually thinking that it was more like survivalist types, survivalist corporate types, basically, who were mistrustful of the government and all that. They would be a more authoritarian government than, say, Chronosoft, who's out in Los Angeles. In that sense, in Chapter 7, when Bridge and Stonewall and Aristotle get pulled over by the Legios Ranger, which is what their cops are called, I pictured a more paramilitary type, a more, basically, Buford T. Justice, except corporate and more military and, almost like the Nazis and the Blues Brothers, if you want to get it. That backwoods survivalist militia type, but given authority by a corporation. So they get pulled over. Their cars immediately scanned the minute they cross the state line. So every place at the state line, there's scanners saying, okay, bam, license plate, this is who's just entered our state, track them. So, Stonewall had been through there not that long ago, but apparently this stuff was new because, again, all these LGLs are only 2 or 3 years old at most. So they're still implementing policies and procedures and getting things added up. So they get pulled over, and Bridge is stopped on the way, and all along Bridge has been getting this inkling through dreams and feelings and buzzing that he is meant to go to Boulder. Something is trying to get him to Boulder. So when he gets pulled over and he gets slowed down, he gets help, and it's help that appears to come from the global net in the form of a giant dragon. But it affects the trooper's car, which is attached to the global net, is using the global net to check the credentials of the people in the car, or of the car itself. And so Angela, who's been kind of tailing them over the global net through Bridge's connection, sees this, and then Bridge looks out at the guy's car, and suddenly the guy's car turns into a fucking transformer, into this giant metal golem type thing that attacks the Ranger and lets Bridge and the others get away. And, they're all looking at Bridge like, Bridge, what the fuck just happened? And Bridge is like, how the hell do I know? But clearly, there's something trying to get him to Boulder. So they've got to figure out a way to kind of hide out and get based somewhere where they're not going to be followed. And they can't use this car because now this car's been scanned, so they've got to switch out a car. So Stonewall mentions that back when he left town at the end of Under the Amoral Bridge, because of the cops he had to kill in the warehouse, he had stayed with the naturalist, this guy named Bud, the naturalist. When I wrote the RPG, part of the lore and one of the classes was a naturalist, which, what does that mean? When I was in high school, I was very moved by and very inspired by Walden's Thoreau's On Walden Pond, to the point where I call myself a naturalist for the longest time, and so I still have some leanings that way. I kind of wanted to give an homage to Walden and Thoreau by making this class called the Naturalists. And what the Naturalists were is they're basically almost like a militia, but they're a group that withdraws from the society of cities and all that and goes and lives on communes. Now, that doesn't mean they're hippies, but they're not hippies. They don't cut themselves off from, the information network, the information highway network, the global net. They have global net access. They use electricity, although it's generated naturally renewable on site. They do farm. They farm and all that responsibly. But they're also very militant in that they are a lot more like backwoods militia than a hippie commune would be. They're all weapons trained. Bud, the head of it, in a number of chapters I actually point out that it's pretty clear Bud had military training and in fact was probably some kind of special ops or an assassin of some kind and had cybernetic gear removed. And one of the things that the naturalists do believe is they don't believe in cybernetic gear. So if they had some, they get it removed if it's at all possible. They just don't believe in sullying the body in that way. In some instances, Aristotle's the same way, although he's not the commune type. But so that was just me bringing in another thing from the lore and setting up another thing from the lore of the RPG. Shaky Peter got his name from a random twitch of his left arm, a shaky, almost seizure that gripped the limb at odd times. He was a lithe, towering blonde beanpole, always stooping over to talk in a conspiratorial manner with anyone shorter than him, which was essentially everyone. As he spoke, stooped over, his spiky hair twitching with his enthusiastic motions, his left arm would start twitching, subtly at first, but growing in intensity until the wave passed. He never really paid any attention to it whatsoever. When asked, would shrug it off indifferently without explanation. Bridge had been in North Hill about 2 hours when he met Peter, the first hour lost in the glitched Legio screening process. He spent the second hour asking shell-shock survivors questions about the city, which he turned subtly into questions about getting things. All those questions led to Shaky Peter. Bridge recognized an equal the minute he caught sight of the gaunt giant. Bridge caught Peter's eye and nodded. Glancing one way then the other, Peter strode awkwardly over to Bridge. The tall man acknowledged that Bridge wasn't alone, indicating Aristotle standing within a few feet from him. Before Peter could even speak a word, Bridge cut him off. Don't worry, brother, I'm not here to horn in on your turf. The tall rival was taken aback. He leaned away as if struck, then bent over with a smile that was all crooked teeth. That's good, because I'm not about to let you. Now tell me why you're here before you see whose boys are harder. He finished the threat with raised eyebrows. Not here to unzip and compare, brother. Not your brother. I've been working these scales since we wandered out of that hell, and I don't take kindly to slicksters from, where is that I smell? L.A.? This ain't L.A., and these people ain't your marks. Only thing I want is information, Bridge said. My bodyguard over there, his grandmother lived in Boulder. He can't reach her, and you know how much good the official channels are. Little old black lady named Lassa Freedom lived in the university. Heard of her? Shaky Peter is basically the bridge of one of these refugee camps around Boulder in Denver and the surrounding area of people who lived on outside of the dome area that came up and were able to and had to leave because all the power, all the water, everything around in the surrounding area was off. Not to mention, houses and shit just getting destroyed because a dome just popped up in the middle of them, overnight. I wanted to do the whole interaction with Shaky Peter because I wanted to show that Bridge was not alone and that basically this type of character, this type of fixer character, was going to show up everywhere. He's just, especially places where people are in trouble and they need help. There's always going to be a guy that's going to profit off that. This is basically a bridge for this area. And I modeled him physically off of Peter Crouch, who played football for England, as well as Liverpool at the time. I think he was still with Liverpool, but he later on went and played for Tottenham and a few other places. I think Stoke at some point. But that's who I modeled Shaky Peter after. But the exchange between the two shows Bridge that there are people who feel that same itch he feels in his interface jack to go to the dome, and Shaky Peter actually sets up some of these trips. So Bridge is like, okay, well then, let's go. Put me on the bus there, Chief. And all he really has to bargain with is his no circuit. He says, okay, now you know me, which means you know all the people I know in Los Angeles, which to a guy like Shaky Peter or Bridge is gold. It's, a larger no circuit. It's more people, it's more opportunities, and that sort of thing. So he sets Bridge up and puts him and Aristotle and Stonewall in a van that's going north to Boulder. And we see that, the van is not empty. It's almost kind of like coyotes travel, transporting people across the U.S.-Mexican border. Except in this case, they're avoiding National Guard and Legios checkpoints to get to this dome area. And of course, they only go so far because in the area surrounding the dome, all the energy goes away. Basically, all electricity and everything in the car's going to shut down. And so the driver lets them off, a good ways, a good couple miles away from the thing. It says, walk that way, and it's there. So Bridge and the crew and all these tourists are walking towards this thing, and they get to a National Guard checkpoint that they have to try to get around. And again, the National Guard, they're just basically troops that have to use, abandoned cars as a barrier because their own Humvees won't work. Bridge gets there, but he's not sure how he's going to get around this checkpoint when all of a sudden Carl the Dragon shows up. Busts through the checkpoint, sends guys running, scattering, burns things, and points out Bridge and says, you come with me. So at this point we know Bridge is meant to be there, and what has actually happened is the technomancers, when they realized the predicament they were in because of the dome, sent out this message through the global net to Bridge. But because of the weird amplification of the dome, it hit everybody with an interface jack and made them all, be compelled to come to Boulder. So Bridge walks along with this dragon, and there's a number of, he's like totally freaked out, but he's Bridge, so he's, acting calm and swaggery, and he realizes there's just some weird things about this dragon. Well, number one is named Carl. Who names their dragon Carl? Or what dragon names himself Carl? And, there's weird things with the way Carl interacts with the environment around him. There's heat he can feel, but then at some points it's like he doesn't have quite the gravity that the body should have. But, before he can really investigate it further, they get to the dome, and he sends Bridge through. And Bridge is clear to go through. Because earlier in the book, we see that there had been a viral video running around of a couple of jackasses who are, doing a hold my beer kind of moment around the dome, who get electrocuted when, they touch the dome. So Bridge wasn't quite sure, but Carl says, go on in. Fucking son of a bitch.